Welcome to the Delta Electricity Site Access Induction. This module will take approximately 45 minutes to complete. Delta Electricity operates one power station on the central coast of New South Wales and maintains an office in Sydney CBD. Delta is committed to providing a healthy and safe workplace for its employees, contractors and visitors. Make sure you have a copy of the Site Induction Questionnaire and you have filled in all the requested details. Please fill in the questionnaire when prompted by selecting one of the answers provided. There is only one correct answer for each question. Once the induction is finished, please check that you have answered every question and that you have signed to certify that you have completed the site access induction and agreed to abide by all instructions. Access to apparatus rules assessment. If you are required to work under a permit, you will also need to print and complete the access to apparatus rules assessment during this induction. You will not receive any prompting throughout the module to fill in the assessment, so please pay close attention. Once the induction is finished and you have completed all questions, please sign to certify that you have completed the Access to Apparatus Rules Assessment and agree to abide by all instructions. The risks and hazards associated with work at Delta power stations consists of, but is not limited to, high voltage electricity, electric arc flash hazard, asbestos, high pressure vessels and pipework, high pressure and temperature steam, chemicals and dangerous goods, confined spaces, high-speed rotating machinery, mobile plant, noise, dust, deep water, and working at heights. Your risk assessments must consider the hazards associated with your particular activities, and effective controls must be implemented prior to work commencing. Delta is committed to providing a safe place for people to work in. To ensure the safety of people working on our sites, we have identified a number of key areas that are essential to providing a safe workplace for all people engaged to work on our sites. These have been captured in our safety commitments. Not compromise safety as a value. Expect leaders at all levels to promote and demonstrate safe behaviours. Look out for others. Assess risks on all activities. Analyze when safety fails and fix the problem. Acknowledge and promote safe work. OHS Management System. Delta maintains an effective OHS management system to ensure that all Delta electricity operations are managed with proper regard for the health and safety of all employees, contractors, visitors, and that all statutory obligations are being met. Site entry. Due to the nature of its operation and the importance of electricity supply to the community, access to Delta electricity sites is restricted to people that have a legitimate need to be on site. Those people that have reason to be on site must have permission of a Delta electricity officer to be on site. Unauthorized personnel and persons who have entered illegally will be removed from site, with police assistance if required. Personal protective equipment. All persons in plant areas and workshops are required to wear personal protective equipment, or PPE, consisting of long-sleeve shirt, trousers and safety boots, high-visibility garments, and eye protection. Helmets are required in areas other than administration buildings, offices, workshops, meal rooms, and bathrooms. However, tasks performed within these areas from time to time may require additional PPE. It is important that the appropriate PPE is used for the task being undertaken and must be considered as part of the risk assessment process. Signage has been erected to assist in determining appropriate PPE for the area. Remember, hats on, glasses on. Some areas of the station have hazards which may require specialised PPE as part of the risk control process. Ensure the appropriate PPE is being worn. If in doubt, consult your team leader or Delta representative. Emergency response. Phone 555 from a Delta phone to notify of all emergencies, fire, first aid and environment. Check your Induction safety booklet for phone numbers when calling from a mobile. The emergency sirens are tested at 11 a.m. every Thursday. Please answer the following question. Please answer the following question. Emergency response. This siren indicates that there is a power station emergency. This notifies emergency response personnel to go to the designated assembly point and prepare to respond to the emergency. All other staff, contractors and visitors are to report back to their respective team leaders or contract administrators and await further instructions. This siren indicates that there is a need to evacuate the power station. You need to move quickly and safely to the designated muster area for the site. Stay with your work team and ensure you are accounted for. You must stay at the muster area until advised to leave.
The muster area for Vales Point is Tom Barney Oval. The muster area for the Sydney office is St Andrew's Square. All Sydney staff need to be aware of and adhere to the building fire and evacuation plan in place. Delta is committed to ensuring a drug and alcohol-free workplace to further enhance Delta's promotion of workplace safety. Measures have been implemented at all Delta sites to assist with achieving this goal. These include drug and alcohol testing and the provision of assistance, counselling and rehabilitation services. Delta's drug and alcohol testing program includes pre-employment drug screening, on-site drug saliva and alcohol breath testing. On-site drug testing will be undertaken randomly and where Delta has a cause to do so. All personnel entering the site will be required to complete mandatory alcohol testing on a daily basis. Entry to site is conditional on a blood alcohol concentration BAC reading of 0.00%.
The mandatory testing must be completed at one of the designated testing locations. If your mandatory alcohol test returns a blood alcohol content result greater than 0, you must follow the following steps. Failure to comply with any of these steps will result in entry to site being denied for the shift. Do not enter site. Contact your team leader supervisor. Notify your team leader supervisor via phone. They must supervise your retest or nominate someone to. Wait for supervised retest. Retest no sooner than 15 minutes and no later than 30 minutes after your initial test. Retest on the same machine. You only get one retest. If your blood alcohol content is 0, you may enter site. If your blood alcohol content is greater than 0, consult with your team leader or supervisor to make safe arrangements to leave for the day.
Fire safety. Firefighting appliances, including fire hoses and fire extinguishers, are located throughout Delta sites for use in emergencies. Different fire extinguishers are intended for different classes of fires. See the back of your induction booklet. You need to familiarise yourself with the location of the fire appliances in your work area and know which appliance is to be used. Everyone has a responsibility to report fire hazards and to ensure equipment is used correctly. If you see smoke or fire, report it immediately by phoning 555. Please answer the following question. Please answer the following question. First aid. Where employees require urgent first aid treatment and their injury is of such a nature that they or a qualified first aider in the area cannot administer treatment at the first aid kit location, the emergency 555 number must be called to initiate emergency first aid response. Suitably equipped and maintained first aid facilities are located at Vales Point. These facilities are accessible to emergency response teams, qualified first aiders and OHS staff. The Sydney office has been equipped to manage minor first aid issues. Injury management. Delta has an obligation to comply with the workplace injury management and workers' compensation legislation. This requires Delta to provide suitable duties and employment as an integral part of injury management. If you are injured at work, you must notify your team leader ASAP. There is a legal requirement for early notification of injuries. Electronic forms are available and further assistance can be sought from your team leader. Contractors will also have special requirements which need to be followed. If an injury management plan is initiated, you must participate and cooperate in the process. Your cooperation is also sought in assisting a team member with their suitable duties as part of their injury management. A return to work coordinator, usually one of the OHS staff, will oversee your injury management. Incident reporting. All accidents and incidents must be reported. If you require immediate assistance, phone 555. For information on how to notify of an emergency on a mobile phone, refer to your induction booklet. All of the power stations have first aid facilities, and workplaces within Delta have trained first aiders, as well as first aid kits and infection control guidelines. Contractors are required to provide their own first aid equipment and trained personnel. They also need to have an incident reporting process and ensure their Delta contact is notified. It is a legal requirement that all injuries are reported promptly. Reporting forms are available on Delta Web. Please discuss with your team leader. Each site has varying arrangements for non-urgent assistance. Check with your team leader. Please answer the following question. Please answer the following question. Risk Management Program. At Delta Electricity, all aspects of business risk, including safety-related risks, are analysed regularly. This diagram shows the interdependence of varying aspects of business risk upon one another. Delta's risk management program is dynamic and sustainable in its approach. This is achieved by incorporating risk management processes into all business planning and activities. Delta manages its business utilizing the principles of risk management. However, Delta also acknowledges the principles of business risk are not the same as OHS risk. Risk assessment. Delta Electricity has completed a large number of risk assessments on its plant and activity of people working on site. Delta staff are able to access this information within the Health and Safety page on the Delta Web. Staff undertaking contract work can request risk assessment information from their Delta contract administrator. Risk register. All formal risk assessment data collected has been collated in Delta's OHS risk register. Like risk assessments, this data can be accessed from the Delta Web or your contract administrator. When undertaking activity on Delta sites, all hazards associated with the work shall be identified and assessed to determine the level of risk. Appropriate control measures must then be implemented to mitigate the risk. Assessment of work on site shall be captured in the task-based risk assessment for Delta staff. Contract organisations are to use the forms and procedures nominated in their site-specific safety plan. A pre-work discussion such as a V-Safe, Take 5 or Stop and Think should be completed prior to job commencement by the work team. When determining how to control the risk, the hierarchy of controls is used. Eliminate. The first and best option is to eliminate the hazard. Isolation or substitution. The hazard may be isolated from the people through remote controls or by substituting a less hazardous process or chemical. Engineering controls may be used. As an example, improved mufflers to reduce noise. Administrative controls such as policy and safety rule adherence down to job rotation. Personal protective equipment or PPE is the last resort on the hierarchy, but offers protection to individuals should one of the above not be practical. Legislation.
The Workplace Health and Safety Act 2011 and its associated Regulation 2017 are the New South Wales legislation relating to workplace health and safety. Under this legislation, Delta has a duty of care to ensure the health and safety of all workers on its sites. Workers also have responsibilities to take reasonable care for the health and safety of people who are at the place of work and also cooperate with his or her employer in the interests of health and safety.
Policies. Delta has a safety policy which identifies the roles and accountabilities for all staff in fulfilling their legal responsibilities. Delta is committed to providing a safe working environment for all employees, contractors and visitors. Smoking is prohibited in all buildings, vehicles and mobile plant equipment. There is no smoking at power stations except in designated smoking areas. Details can be obtained from your team leader or Delta contact. Please answer the following question. Please answer the following question.
vSafe. Delta utilises a stop and think process called vSafe. This is a mandatory process that is undertaken in groups or as an individual and requires the consideration of hazards and working conditions associated with the work. Delta has a requirement for a vSafe to be complete at the beginning of each shift or when activities change. The vSafe form also allows people not associated with the work to undertake a safety observation. vSafe forms are collected and basic information is used for WHS committee and management reporting.
Please answer the following question. Please answer the following question. To work under a permit to work on Delta electricity sites, you must have an understanding of the following areas. You need to understand how approval to access plant is given and the paperwork involved. How the plant is isolated with locks and tags. How you become part of the isolation by applying your personal lock to an isolation control board. What are the responsibilities and principles you must understand to work under a permit to work or test? What happens if you lose your key? Please note that further training is required to receive or issue permits. Any work that is undertaken on a Delta electricity site must be commenced after permission has been obtained, apparatus isolated, and warnings have been given. Permission can be given via a number of ways, including a permit to work form that is yellow in colour, or being issued with a sundry apparatus approval for access form that is white in colour. The majority of work undertaken on site is completed under a permit to work. Sundry apparatus approval for access is only given for small equipment that is not involved with power generation. For example, maintenance on domestic water heaters. The following slides describe Delta's isolation procedure. Please note that you will need to complete further training if you are required to receive a permit to work and be the person in charge. Delta Electricity has developed a lockout isolation process to ensure that people that have to work on power generating plant are not exposed to operational energies. This diagram is a simple representation of how the isolation lockout process works. The plant is isolated, locked with red locks and tagged with a danger tag. The diagram shows how by placing your personal lock on the isolation control board, access to the keys are required to undo the isolation. It is important to remember that when you are working under a permit to work, you must be locked on at all times. This effectively makes you and your lock part of the isolation. This process is explained in more detail in the following slides. When plant is isolated to give people access, an appropriate isolation to effectively control the risks associated with all sources of energy is determined and documented. This is checked to ensure the correct isolation has been prepared and verified to ensure the lock and tags are on the correct isolation points. The following are tags used in Delta's isolation process. A danger tag can vary in size to suit different applications. A danger tag is an approved red tag, attached to a device as an instruction against the operation of the device. A warning tag can also vary in size to suit different applications. A warning tag is an approved yellow tag attached to a device as a warning that the device may be operated, removed, or replaced. Please answer the following question. Please answer the following question. Delta Electricity's isolation process uses different coloured locks for different purposes. Red is used for isolating equipment and is used with a danger tag. It is a series lock that has many locks with a single common key. Yellow is used where an isolation point is required for testing and is used with a warning tag. Green is the permit lock. White is used to lock the isolation control board. The key to this lock is held by the person in receipt of the permit to work. Blue is the Delta personal lock. One lock is issued to Delta staff that have to work under a permit to work. It has the service number of the person engraved on the lock. Purple is the contractor personal lock. One lock is issued by Delta Electricity to contract staff that have to work under a permit to work. This lock must be returned at the end of the contract. It has a unique number engraved on the lock that will be registered to the person it is allocated to. The next few slides give further detail on how Delta Electricity access to apparatus rules work. When plant is isolated so people can access it, each isolation point is isolated, locked with a red isolation lock, and tagged. This ensures that the integrity of the isolation is maintained to prevent someone reversing the isolation while people are still working on plant.
The permit to work paperwork is held on the isolation control board. This board is designed to hold the green key required to undo the isolation. The green key cannot be removed until all of the locks have been removed from the outside of the board. Before you can commence work under a permit to work, you must obtain permission from the person holding the permit to work, receive instructions on the equipment and work to be undertaken by the person in receipt of permit to work, sign on to the permit to work access sheet. Apply your personal lock to the isolation control board. Remember to look after your key at all times. Confirm the apparatus on the permit matches the physical apparatus you are going to work on. Confirm that the work you are about to undertake is covered by the description of work on the permit. Follow any safety directions and adhere to any warnings given by the person in receipt of the permit to work. You must also sign off the access signature sheet and remove your personal lock from the isolation control board at the completion of work each day, shift, or when you are required to work under a different permit to work. If you are ever uncertain about anything regarding the plant or the work, you must consult the permit holder.
You must look after your personal lock key at all times, as the isolation cannot be restored if your lock cannot be removed. If your key is lost, you must immediately report it to the person in receipt of the permit to work and your team leader. If a person forgets to remove their personal lock before they finish work for the day, and the permit to work is required to be surrendered, they shall be contacted where possible and asked to return to the site to remove their lock. Where a personal lock is unable to be removed from the isolation control board by its owner and there is a need to suspend or surrender a permit, permission to destructively remove the lock must be obtained from the Executive Manager Production. Following the removal of the personal lock, it must be returned to the Executive Manager Production. An incident report detailing the circumstances requiring the removal of the lock must be completed and submitted to the Executive Manager Production. A white tape barrier is erected to define a high voltage work area. You must not pass over or under the tape or remove it. Access is controlled by a PTW issued to the person in charge of the work, who must be appropriately trained and certificated. Each person must sign on the PTW and attach their personal lock when entering. More information is contained in the Delta Electricity Access to Apparatus Rules. Further advice from your team leader or manager must be sought if there is any doubt about the correct application of the rules. Confined spaces. Confined spaces, because of their situation, construction, contents, and/or operation, may be subject to hazardous atmospheres. Also, they may have the potential to engulf and/or entrap a person working within them. Any person entering or working in a confined space, including the standby person, must be appropriately trained. Adherence to documented procedures will ensure work in confined spaces is carried out safely, efficiently, and in accordance with legislative and Delta's requirements. Confined spaces are listed on registers which can be found on the Delta web. Seek further assistance from your team leader or Delta contact. A confined space emergency plan must be available to the working party. Personnel must obtain permission from the permit holder to enter a confined space and receive any warnings. A confined space risk assessment must be performed by appropriately trained persons, and all control measures must be implemented by the person in receipt of the PTW. You must sign on to and apply your personal lock to the permit, as well as signing on to the confined space access signature sheet when entering the space. Please answer the following question. Please answer the following question. Hot work. Hot work is any process involving grinding, welding, thermal or oxygen cutting, or heating and other related heat-producing or spark-producing operations. There are designated areas within the power stations considered as high risk if a fire should occur. These areas are defined within the Delta Electricity Access to Apparatus rules, and a permit to work is required before any hot work can commence. When working outside of the power stations, the potential for bushfire risk must be assessed and appropriate control measures implemented.
To reduce the possibility of injury when performing manual tasks, it is important to consider how to reduce the risks associated with the postures you adopt, the movements you are using, including the repetition, the forces you are exerting, the vibration that you experience, either hand-arm vibration or whole-body vibration, the duration and frequency with which the manual task is performed, and the loads and equipment you are handling. Manual task risks must be identified and controlled in the same manner as other risks as part of the risk management process. A manual task risk assessment may be undertaken for higher risk activities, with assistance available from Delta's occupational therapist.
Please answer the following question. Please answer the following question. EMF. For some years, concerns have been raised about possible health effects resulting from exposure to electric or magnetic fields. Many studies have been in this area, and Delta's standard is to work prudently with the guidance of competent health authorities such as the National Health and Medical Research Council. Generally, control measures are administrative and limit exposure times in such areas. Signs warn of these areas. People with electronic implants such as pacemakers and cochlear implants should seek further advice before working in these areas. An arc flash is an unexpected, violent electrical short circuit in air that produces an arc and associated byproducts that can lead to serious injury. All electrical work is required to be performed by qualified personnel using a risk assessment that considers arc flash potential. Arc flash hazard can be mitigated by ensuring electrical switching is only performed by trained operators using appropriate PPE for the risk category. There are 4 categories of arc flash PPE, and Delta stocks a suitable range of this equipment. Portable electrical appliances. All portable electrical appliances must be tagged and tested and fitted with earth leakage units. Do not use an electrical appliance without checking the tag and condition of the appliance. Please answer the following question. Please answer the following question. Asbestos. Delta has developed procedures which set out the minimum requirements for the safe removal, repair, and disposal of asbestos and asbestos-containing material by Delta Electricity employees or contractors. These procedures relate to persons involved in asbestos work. When routine maintenance or repair work is being planned, the location's asbestos register on the Delta web shall be consulted prior to disturbing insulation on piping, boiler and turbine high-pressure temperature flange gaskets, equipment and other suspect building materials, removal or drilling of floor tiles, sheet floor covering, wallboard, plaster or other suspect asbestos-bearing materials. Under no circumstances shall work proceed until the identity of a suspected material being confirmed as asbestos-free or the material is treated as containing asbestos, where the appropriate controls shall be implemented in accordance with Delta's asbestos management standard.
Vales Point uses asbestos-coated metal sheeting as cladding. This type of asbestos cladding is either yellow or green and is known as galbestos. Galbestos is galvanized iron sheets with a coating of chrysotile on each side covered by a coating of paint or bitumen. Galbestos has a textured painted surface. It was available in flat, corrugated and other profiles and manufactured from the 1950s through to the 1970s. Ensure you have identified within the work scope any work which may involve galbestos material. This may include, but is not limited to, flashing and wall sheeting.
Delta Electricity has undertaken extensive work to identify and remove asbestos material from its sites and has included all known asbestos-bearing material on its asbestos register. Due to the large number of gaskets on site, some gaskets may not have been identified and therefore may not be on the asbestos register. Where there is any doubt regarding the composition of any gasket, the team leader or contract manager should be consulted immediately. All gaskets, regardless of composition, shall be removed using hand tools. The use of grinders or sanders for removing gaskets is forbidden.
Fly ash is a fine grey powder and is a byproduct of combustion of pulverized coal. The fly ash at Vales Point contains a percentage of crystalline silica. If personnel are exposed to crystalline silica, there is a potential to contract respiratory diseases. For example, silicosis. P1 respiratory protection is required when staff are required to work with or near fly ash. Staff who are required to wear respiratory protective equipment shall be issued equipment that is a suitable size, type and fit. To ensure that suitable equipment is provided, a fit test of all RPE is to be conducted. Organisations will need to produce evidence that staff required to wear RPE have been appropriately fit tested for all equipment.
Barriers. Hazards shall be clearly marked with signs, barriers, tape or flag rope to prevent access. It is important that the barricade is effective and the type of barrier used will be determined by the type of hazard. If entry to a barricaded area is required, be aware of the hazard and take appropriate action. A completed barrier tag must be attached to each barricade. There are different coloured or branded tapes to designate specific areas, such as asbestos work, high voltage access and incident sites. A Read Before Operating tag, RBO, is used to draw attention to abnormal operation or other conditions where personal safety is not involved. They must not be used as a substitute for danger tag or warning tags. Audible alarms. Conveyor belts and trippers have audible warning alarms that sound prior to starting up. If you are required to work on this equipment, do not rely on the alarms. Ensure proper isolation procedures are followed.
Height safety. Height safety needs to be considered as part of the risk assessment. Nominated controls must be implemented and adhered to at all times during the course of any work where there is a risk of falling. When working at heights, you must consider the welfare of those working below you and install drop barriers if there is a risk of injury. The use of ladders also needs to be considered and their use minimized. Delta adopts zero tolerance for any height safety breaches. Cranes and lifting. A variety of fixed and mobile cranes are used extensively on site. Risk related to this type of equipment can include striking injuries from raising, dropping or slewing loads, crushing injuries from equipment overturning, braking or rigging failures, falls while working at heights, electrocution from contact with overhead power lines.
Prior to any lift, an assessment must be undertaken to determine the load weight, crane capacity, crane footing, nearby services, rigging gear, and traffic management. Drop and exclusion zones are to be established to ensure people are never allowed to walk under or put any part of their body under a suspended load. All lifting activities must be undertaken by trained and certified personnel. Pipe identification. Contents of pipes and pipelines at the power stations are identified by colour coding. Trace stickers may further detail contents and flow direction. If there is any confusion about the nature of the contents of pipes, consult the relevant plant owner before work commences. Chemicals. Chemicals can only be brought onto site after safety data sheets have been supplied to and approved of by the Hazardous Material Approval Officer, usually within the Environment Group, and the Safety Manager. Storage must be in accordance with statutory requirements. Safety data sheets are required for each chemical used on site and are required to be held where the chemical is stored and used. Chemicals must be considered as part of the risk assessment process. All chemical containers must be correctly labelled, and the use of food containers for storing chemicals is strictly prohibited. Please answer the following question. Please answer the following question. Delta's Code of Conduct requires that you should act honestly, fairly, and to the best of your ability when dealing with others. Contribute to an environment of enthusiasm, pride, teamwork, and excellence. Follow lawful and reasonable instructions. Comply with policies, standards, and procedures. Recognize and accept accountability for your actions. Contribute to an ethical and equitable work environment. Breaches of the code expose you to possible disciplinary action, up to and including dismissal. Equal employment opportunity. Delta's equal employment opportunity objectives are to recognize and encourage diversity, assisting its employees to realize their full potential. Delta also strives for a workplace free of discrimination, harassment, and bullying. It is unlawful to discriminate against someone or harass them because of their sex, race, or ethno-religious background, marital or domestic status, disability, homosexuality, transgender status, age or carer's responsibility. All transgender employees at Delta Electricity have the right to be treated as the gender with which they identify. This includes being referred to by their preferred name and pronouns, as well as access to bathrooms and other facilities of which they choose. Inappropriate workplace behaviour will not be tolerated under any circumstances, and there are serious consequences to anyone who engages in any form of inappropriate behaviour, including disciplinary action. Managers and team leaders are responsible for ensuring that staff under their control are aware that discrimination, harassment, and bullying will not be tolerated, and complaints thoroughly investigated. If you experience or witness any behaviour that may breach these standards, you should report it to your manager, team leader, or HR as soon as possible. Contractors should report any issues to their supervisor as per their own procedures or their contract administrator. Employee assistance. Delta Electricity offers an advice and counselling service to its employees and their immediate family. Help can be sought on personal or work-related issues. The service is confidential, and you can self-refer or discuss with your team leader or OHS staff. Computer facilities. Delta provides computer facilities and associated services for business use to carry out tasks related to your job. Delta does allow limited private use. Delta's policy on acceptable computer use can be found on the Delta web and should be reviewed carefully. Clarification can be sought from your team leader.
The COVID-19 Pandemic Response Plan outlines Delta's response to the ongoing pandemic. All personnel need to comply with the controls implemented on site to minimise the risk of transmission. As a minimum, this includes getting tested and not attending work if you have even the mildest COVID-19 symptoms. Social distancing greater than 1.5 metres. Maintaining good hand hygiene. Self-clean frequently touched surfaces or shared items, for example, computer equipment or tools. Wearing a face mask when social distancing cannot be maintained. For example, when undertaking maintenance activities. Delta will implement additional controls where required, such as restricted elevator capacity, separation of teams, etc. Personnel will be notified of these controls via site notices. All staff should continue to assume that a control is in place unless there is a specific site notice advising it has been relaxed. Further information can be obtained from the compliance manager. It is essential that all personnel on site follow COVID-19 controls to keep our workmates, friends and families safe and healthy.
Traffic control. The power station sites observe New South Wales road rules. There are signs to indicate speed limits. Drivers must be aware of pedestrians and observe any parking restrictions. There may also be heavy plant and equipment moving around the power stations. These vehicles may not be able to stop suddenly, so give them plenty of room for manoeuvring. Access to coal stacks. Light passenger commercial vehicles entering the Vales Point coal stack must display an amber flashing light that is visible for 360 degrees. Signage will be on the entry and exit ramps to the coal stack. Amber lights are available from the Vales Point Security Gatehouse. Please answer the following question. Please answer the following question. General responsibilities and authority for employees, contractors and labour hire. All persons entering Delta's sites shall follow all OHS policies and procedures and cooperate with lawful directions. Participate in risk management processes and comply with all risk control measures. Undertake activities in line with competencies, training and licenses. Participate in on-site training where required. Report all safety incidents, near misses and safety hazards. Complete and submit safety forms as required. Cease work and report if health and safety of persons or property is at immediate risk. Delta staff can find a more detailed list of their OHS responsibilities on the Delta web. Contract staff can also find a more detailed list of their OHS responsibilities on the Delta web. Please answer the following question. 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 Security. Delta Electricity provides a safe and secure work environment. Security levels are implemented and reviewed as per federal and state government directives. Delta Electricity is required to provide a workplace which is aligned to a designated security level. Under certain conditions, Delta Electricity can choose to independently increase our security measures beyond that which is required by the state or federal governments. Delta Electricity must conduct their day-to-day business within 4 different levels of security, these being low, medium, high, or extreme. Each of these levels will mean changes to how you can enter and how you are expected to conduct work within each particular Delta Electricity workplace. To meet its legislative responsibilities, provide a safe and secure environment for employees, the public and its assets, and to ensure the efficient operation of the business, Delta Electricity uses closed-circuit television, CCTV surveillance, or security entry and exit information. The CCTV and security system operates 24 hours per day and 7 days per week. Signs which indicate the use of CCTV surveillance are displayed at the entry points and other key areas of the Delta Electricity facilities. Delta Electricity may make changes to the CCTV surveillance from time to time, including changing the number or locations of cameras. Surveillance through newly installed cameras will start immediately on installation. CCTV surveillance and site entry-exit information is collected on a continuous basis and generally used to achieve the following objectives: to deter and respond appropriately to security incidents. For example, detect trespass, theft, and vandalism. To gather information that may be used in evidence if a crime is alleged to have been committed. To monitor and assist in managing plant operation. Site entry and exit information is recorded in Delta's security and information management systems for all employees, contractors, and visitors to ensure a safe working environment and the effective and efficient operation of the business. Access to site by all personnel, visitors, and vehicles is dependent on the level of security implemented at any time. The level of security may be changed by government direction at any time. All personnel will be advised of changes in the security level and the requirements that pertain to the new level. We therefore require that personnel entering or working on one of Delta Electricity's workplaces to consider the following. Be aware of the current threat level. Report any suspicious activity on or near site to your team leader or immediate Delta Electricity representative. Do not approach any suspicious person for your own safety. Follow all directions regarding site security to the best of your ability. Have your security identification with you at all times. Vehicles that have been authorized to enter site may be searched by security upon exit. If you are unsure what to do regarding security issues, please contact your team leader, supervisor, or your Delta Electricity representative. Business continuity. When disaster strikes, normal business functions can break down. This can affect our business in many ways. So rather than just stop, Delta has developed a business continuity management plan. The BCM plan, in conjunction with the emergency management plan, enables Delta to effectively respond to and then recover the business to normal. During a business continuity event, you may be required to become part of a recovery team. Clear and consistent communication is essential. Therefore, all external inquiries, comments, or communication must go via your team leader or project manager to the Business Continuity Communication Coordinator. During a BC event, a recorded announcement will be available on the following number: 1-800-335-127. Environment. The environment includes us and everything that surrounds us. Our proximity to vital waterways such as Lake Macquarie on the Central Coast means that any spill could have adverse safety and environmental impacts on our wider community. Delta has in place many policies and procedures to prevent such an occurrence, or at the very least, to minimize any impact. Environmental legislation. Delta's power stations work within the license requirements of the Environment Protection Authority, or EPA. The Protection of the Environment Operations Act sets stringent requirements and limits the amount of pollutants that can be discharged into the environment. Environmental sustainability. To ensure environment sustainability, Delta Electricity will minimize impacts to the environment and endorse the principles of ecologically sustainable development. Implement and maintain a certified ISO 14001 environmental management system that aims to continuously improve environmental performance. Regularly monitor and review environmental performance and exceed compliance with environmental legislation. Develop and implement greenhouse gas and pollution reduction strategies. Continue scientific investigations to enhance knowledge of the environment. Act with caution when scientific knowledge is inconclusive and there are risks of serious, irreversible environmental consequences. Efficiently use resources and reuse, recycle, or safely dispose of wastes. Ensure employees and contractors receive appropriate environmental training. Maintain bufferland in a manner which enhances biodiversity, and take into account of the interests of the communities in which Delta operates. Environmental incidents. A spill is an environmental incident if more than 20 litres of oil is spilt, more than 1 litre or 1 kilogram of another chemical is spilt. As part of non-routine operations, oil flows down any drainage grate. Anything but stormwater enters a stormwater grate. Visual pollution is evident in the water, air, or land. Environmental incident reporting. It is important that all environmental incidents are reported by Delta staff or contractors promptly and without delay to 555. The shift manager is required to report all pollution incidents to the manager, environment operations, or production manager, or manager environment strategy and compliance promptly and without delay after becoming aware of the incident. Delta is required to promptly and without delay notify the relevant regulatory authorities where a pollution incident has occurred that is causing or threatening material harm to the environment. Details of incidents should be reported via the Delta web. Contractors must notify their Delta contact. Waste management. To maximize conservation of resources and minimize the need for disposal of waste, Delta adopts a hierarchy of waste management: reduce, reuse, and recycle. Everyone can contribute to this goal by placing recyclable goods in the appropriate receptacles. Housekeeping issues need to be considered at all times. The environment officers can assist you if you have any concerns or suggestions. Drainage. Drains are color-coded to represent the type of material permitted in that particular drain. If you see anything other than the acceptable material entering the drain, report it immediately. Red is for stormwater or clean water only. If you are unsure of the color of a drain, assume it is red. Green is for oil-contaminated water. It is sent to oil water separators and reused. Blue is for coal and ash-contaminated water. It is treated and reused. There are other colored drains on our sites. Ask your team leader or Delta representative for further information before work commences in these areas. Please answer the following question. Please answer the following question.
The Vales Point Ash Dam operational area is a self-contained area adjacent to Vales Point Power Station. The next few slides will describe how Delta Electricity manages traffic management within the Vales Point Ash Dam operational area, including the interaction between vehicles and their immediate environment. For example, pedestrians, other vehicles, and infrastructure, and the processes undertaken to eliminate and/or reduce the risks associated with those interactions within Delta operations. A traffic management guideline has been developed to set out the responsibilities, accountabilities, and requirements for access and vehicle use at Vales Point Ash Dam. This traffic management guideline has been prepared in accordance with the Safe Work Australia General Guide for Workplace Traffic Management and in line with the WHS regulation to manage activities on site in consultation with staff from Vales Point. The main entry to the Ash Dam operational area is via Rutleys Road. Pre-approval from the Ash Dam site manager is required to gain entry via the automated gate system. Checkpoints are located on the other entry points to the Ash Dam operational area. The use of UHF radios is highly recommended when working or moving through Ash Dam operational area. Radios can be pre-arranged with Delta staff prior to arriving on site. The Ash Dam operational area uses Channel 9 for all communications. When entering the operational area, drivers must announce themselves to the weighbridge operator on Channel 9 to notify of their presence. All roads within the Ash Dam operational area are 20 km per hour, unless otherwise signposted. Traffic signs and directional markings must be adhered to at all times. The minimum required personal protective equipment for the Vales Point Ash Dam operational area include high visibility clothing or vest, long pants, long sleeves, hard toe safety boots, safety glasses. The following hazards will be found at the Ash Dam: deep water, loose, uneven surfaces, subsidence, soft edges, moving machinery, wildlife. It is important to note that there is strictly no pedestrian access to the Ash Dam operational area. If there is an emergency, call 555 on the internal phone system 02 43 52 60 70 when using a mobile phone, or call the weighbridge via UHF radio on Channel 9. The muster point is located at the Ashdown office adjacent to the Rutleys Road entrance. A first aid kit and a defibrillator is also located in the Ashdown office. General Traffic Management Loop. Traffic loops have been designed for safety. This is achieved through minimising the two-way traffic by heavy vehicles. Please follow these traffic loops and any road signs. More specific traffic loops do exist for certain tasks. Please refer to the Ashdown Traffic Guideline for further information. For any additional information, please refer to the Ashdown Traffic Guideline or contact the Ashdown Site Manager on 0491 096 894.